It's 200,000 years ago. You're lying on the ground somewhere in East Africa. The sky is just starting to shift from black to a deep, bruised purple. There's no alarm clock. There's no phone buzzing on your nightstand. There's no nightstand. There's no coffee. There's no morning playlist. There's no 5 more minutes. There's just you, the dirt, and whatever is crawling across your ankle right now that you're choosing not to think about. Your eyes open. Not slowly, not with that groggy reluctance you feel on a Monday morning when your brain spends 4 full seconds trying to convince your body that today is optional. No, your eyes open fast. Because out here, slow risers don't make it. They get eaten, or left behind, or both, usually in that order. And in that first second of consciousness, before you move, before you stretch, before you even sit up, your brain fires off a single thought. Not food, not water, not where's the nearest predator. Those come later. Those are important, but they're not first. The very first thing your brain does, every single morning, is something so instinctive, so deeply wired into your operating system that you don't even realize it's happening. And here's the wildest part. You still do it. Today. Right now. Every single morning of your modern, air-conditioned, over-caffeinated life, your brain boots up with the exact same thought that a barefoot human on the African savannah had before agriculture existed. Before language was fully formed. Before anyone had figured out that you could put seeds in the ground and they grow into something you could eat. That thought has been the first line of code in the human morning routine for longer than civilization has been a concept. And nobody talks about it. We talk about circadian rhythms, we talk about cortisol spikes, we talk about why you shouldn't check your email before 9 a.m. as if anyone has ever actually followed that advice. But we almost never talk about the one thing your brain is actually doing in that first conscious moment, because it happens so fast and so automatically that it's invisible. It's like asking a fish to notice water. You can't see it because you've never not done it. So what is it? What is the one thought that every human being has had every single morning for 200,000 years? The answer is not what you'd guess, and once you hear it, you will never wake up the same way again. Now your first instinct is probably something practical. Food, right? That has to be it. You wake up hungry, you think about food. Makes sense. Sounds logical. Sounds very National Geographic. Except it's wrong. Yes, early humans were hungry basically all the time. Chronic caloric deficit was the default setting for most of human history. But hunger is a slow signal. It builds. It nags. It doesn't spike the second your eyes open. Your body can go hours, sometimes days without food, and still function. Your ancestors knew that on a biological level, even if they couldn't articulate it. Hunger wasn't urgent enough to be first. Okay then, predators. That's the next obvious guess. You wake up and immediately scan for lions. Except that doesn't hold up either. By 200,000 years ago, humans were already sleeping in groups, often near fire, often in sheltered positions. The threat of a predator walking into camp at dawn was real but relatively managed. Your brain didn't need to scream, "lion," every single morning because the group had already built systems to handle that. Night watches, fire maintenance, sleeping in clusters. Predator anxiety was background noise, not the opening thought. So what's left? Here it is, the one thought. The first thing your brain did every single morning for 100,000 generations was a roll call. Not a formal one, not a checklist, something faster than that, something almost unconscious. Your eyes opened and your brain immediately started scanning. Who's here? Who's next to me? Who's missing? That's it. That's the thought. Before food, before danger, before planning the day, your brain needed to know if your people were still alive. Because here's what we forget from the comfort of the 21st century. Night was a massacre filter. The dark wasn't just inconvenient, it was genuinely lethal. Snake bites, infections that turned fatal in hours, hypothermia, a fall in the dark that broke a leg, which, in a world without medicine, meant death within days. Infant mortality that could take a newborn between sundown and sunrise without a sound. Every single night, there was a real, non-zero chance that someone in your group of 20 or 30 people would not make it to morning. And if that person was the one who knew where the water was, or the one who could track game, or the one who carried your child, then their absence wasn't just sad. It was a survival crisis for everyone. So your brain learned to check, instantly, automatically, before anything else. Who's still here? This isn't just a nice theory about ancient feelings. This is hardware. Your brain is physically built to do this. In the 1990s, a British anthropologist named Robin Dunbar noticed something strange. When you compare primate species, the size of their neocortex, the outer thinking layer of the brain, scales almost perfectly with the size of their social group. Small brain, small group. Bigger brain, bigger group. It's almost a formula.
And when you plug humans into that formula, you get a number that's become famous in psychology. Around 150. Dunbar's number. That's roughly the maximum number of stable social relationships a human brain can maintain. But here's what most people miss about Dunbar's work. The brain didn't get bigger so we could do math or build tools or compose symphonies. It got bigger so we could track people. Who's trustworthy? Who owes you a favor? Who's sleeping with who? Who's been acting strange lately? Who shared food last time and who didn't? Your enormous, calorie-expensive, ridiculously oversized human brain is essentially a relationship database that burns 20% of your daily energy just to keep running.
Evolution doesn't do that for fun. It does that because the single most important survival variable for a human being was never strength, never speed, never claws or fangs or venom. It was other humans. One human alone on the savannah is a dead human. That's not poetry, that's a statistical fact. A lone individual couldn't hunt large game, couldn't defend against predators at night, couldn't care for offspring and forage at the same time, couldn't stay awake long enough to keep a fire going through the dark hours. Everything that kept you alive was a group activity, which means every morning when your eyes opened, the first calculation your brain ran wasn't about the environment, it was about the network. Is my group intact? Because even one missing person could unravel everything. Lose your best hunter and the caloric intake of the entire group drops. Lose a nursing mother and her infant dies, which means the group shrinks, which means fewer night watches, which means more vulnerability, which means more death. It cascades. The group isn't a nice to have, the group is the oxygen. And your neocortex, that giant wrinkled thing sitting behind your forehead consuming a fifth of every meal you eat, exists primarily to monitor that oxygen supply every waking second of every single day, starting the very first second of the morning. We don't have to guess about this. We can see it in the dirt. When archaeologists excavate ancient campsites, one of the first things they map is where people slept. And the pattern is so consistent across sites and continents and tens of thousands of years that it basically qualifies as a human universal. People slept in tight clusters, not spread out, not in private rooms, not with personal space. Packed together, usually within arm's reach of each other, arranged around a central fire or a series of small fires that someone was responsible for feeding through the night. At the Abri-Pateau rock shelter in France, dating back roughly 20,000 years, the sleeping zones are clearly defined by the wear patterns on the ground and the distribution of ash and debris. People weren't just near each other, they were stacked, deliberately, consistently, across generations of use. The same layout appears in sites across southern Africa, across the Levant, across Southeast Asia. Everywhere humans settled, even temporarily, they slept like puppies in a pile. And that arrangement isn't about warmth, although warmth helped. It's about monitoring. You sleep close because you need to know who's there. You need to feel them breathing. You need to sense immediately if someone gets up, or doesn't get up, or stops moving in a way that means something went wrong. Now fast forward to the present, but not to Manhattan or Los Angeles. Go to northern Tanzania and spend a week with the Hadza, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. Anthropologists who've lived among them describe something remarkable about their mornings. Within the first few minutes of waking, before food preparation, before any planning or task assignment, there's a quiet but unmistakable social scan. People look around, they make eye contact, they note who is present. Short verbal exchanges happen, not full conversations, but acknowledgements. You're here. You're here. Good. Researchers studying the San people of the Kalahari have documented almost identical behavior. The morning begins with contact, with confirmation, with a rapid, informal census that happens so naturally it barely looks like a behavior at all. It just looks like people waking up. But it's not random. It's the same thing your Homo sapiens ancestors were doing at Abripito 20,000 years ago. It's the same thing Homo erectus was probably doing 400,000 years before that. Wake up. Open your eyes. Count your people. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Think about what you did this morning. Not what you'd tell people you did. Not your idealized morning routine with the journaling and the cold shower and the gratitude practice you saw on some podcast clip. What you actually did. You reached for your phone. You did it before your feet hit the floor. Before you peed. Before you drank water. Before your brain had fully committed to the idea that today was happening. Your hand went to that rectangle of glass and you started checking. Not emails, not the news, not first. First you checked people, messages, texts, missed calls, WhatsApp, Instagram, whatever your particular poison is. You opened it and your eyes did exactly what your ancestors' eyes did on the savannah at dawn. They scanned for your people. Who texted me? Who posted? Who's active? Who watched my story? Who didn't? You weren't checking content, you were running a roll call. And we have data on this. A 2023 study out of the University of British Columbia found that the average smartphone user checks their phone within 4 minutes of waking up. 4 minutes. And the first apps opened are overwhelmingly social. Not news apps, not productivity apps, not weather, messaging and social platforms, in that order, every single morning across every demographic they studied. We've been told for years that this is a problem. That's addiction. That the dopamine loops are hijacking our brains and we need to put the phone in another room and buy an analog alarm clock and practice mindful waking. And sure, there's something to that. The apps are designed to exploit compulsive behavior. That's real. But here's what nobody in the digital wellness space seems to want to admit. The impulse underneath the habit is not new. It's not a malfunction. It's not a bug introduced by Silicon Valley in 2007. It's the oldest program your brain has. You are not addicted to your phone. You are addicted to knowing whether your people are okay. Those are very different things. The mechanism is new. The screens, the notifications, the little red badges designed to create anxiety, all of that is engineered and recent and worth criticizing. But the drive beneath it, that need to wake up and immediately confirm the status of your social world, that is 200,000 years old at minimum. You didn't learn it. You inherited it. Every morning you reach for your phone, you are doing exactly what a human on the grasslands of East Africa did when they opened their eyes and looked around the camp. The technology changed. The thought didn't. So let's sit with that for a second. 200,000 years. That's roughly 8,000 generations of human beings waking up and running the same mental program before doing anything else. 8,000 generations of opening your eyes and counting heads. Your great-great-grandmother did it in a village. Her great-great-grandmother did it in a camp. Her great-great-grandmother did it in a rock shelter with a fire dying at her feet and the sound of hyenas somewhere in the distance. And every single one of them, before they thought about food, before they thought about work, before they thought about whatever the version of a to-do list was in their particular century, asked the same silent question. Is everyone still here? We have changed everything else. We invented agriculture and then abandoned it for offices. We built cities so large that you can live your entire life without knowing your neighbor's name. We conquered most of the diseases that used to kill people between sundown and sunrise. We extended the human lifespan so dramatically that dying in the night went from common Tuesday to a statistical anomaly. We put roofs over our heads and locks on our doors and cameras on our porches, and we made night almost irrelevant, almost safe, almost ignorable. And none of it mattered, not to your brain, because your brain doesn't know about antibiotics. Your brain doesn't know about deadbolts. Your brain is still running software that was written for a world where night meant death and morning meant damage assessment. You can show your neocortex 100 years of declining mortality statistics, and it will nod politely and then wake you up tomorrow morning and do the exact same scan it has always done. It will reach for the phone. It will check the messages, it will look for the people it loves, and it will not relax until it finds them. That's not weakness, that's not distraction, that's the deepest, oldest, most unshakable piece of what makes you human. You are a social animal who wakes up every morning and counts your tribe. So tomorrow, when your alarm goes off and your hand reaches for that phone before your brain has even fully loaded, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't feel guilty about not meditating first. Just notice what you're actually doing. You're not scrolling, you're not wasting time. You're doing the same thing every human who ever lived has done at dawn. You're making sure your people made it through the night. That's not a bad habit. That's love. It's always been love.